10. Alan Passaro. Alan Passaro's name is forever tied to one of rock music's darkest days, the 1969 Altamont Free Concert. That event, intended to be a celebration of peace and music, spiraled into chaos and bloodshed. At Altamont, the Hells Angels were hired to maintain order, forming a barrier around the stage with their motorcycles. Their payment, $500 worth of beer. The crowd grew restless as alcohol and tension mixed. When the Rolling Stones took the stage, the atmosphere was electric, but unstable. Amidst the turmoil, a young man named Meredith Hunter, armed with a revolver, approached the stage. Passaro, a Hells Angel, noticed Hunter as he raised the weapon. In a shocking moment caught on film, Passaro lunged with a knife, disarming Hunter and stabbing him. Other angels joined the assault, and Hunter died from his wounds. Passaro was arrested and charged with murder, but after 12.5 hours of jury deliberation, including a detailed review of the concert footage, he was acquitted on the grounds of self-defense. The incident became immortalized in the documentary Gimme Shelter. Even the Rolling Stones, unaware of the killing at the time, were devastated when they later watched the footage. Years later, Alan Passaro himself met a tragic end when he drowned under suspicious circumstances. His death left unanswered questions, but one thing was certain. Passaro had achieved worldwide notoriety for his role in the Altamont tragedy. James Ezekiel Brandes, Jim. Ezekiel Brandes rose to prominence as a feared enforcer for the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels. Known for his violent temperament and criminal involvement in drug trafficking, organized crime and murder, Brandes became a powerful figure in the Brotherhood. At one point, he was sent to Australia to carry out an assassination on a police officer, but authorities discovered incriminating materials in his luggage and denied him entry. Back home, paranoia within the club began to grow. Brandes suspected another member, Henry Crabtree, of being a police informant. In retaliation, he placed a contract on Crabtree's life. When the Aryan Brotherhood tried to collect the bounty, Crabtree cooperated with police, leading to Brandes's arrest. Despite facing murder and racketeering charges, repeated mistrials kept his fate uncertain. His case became a public spectacle, raising questions about the justice system's effectiveness. Eventually, Brandes was convicted of murder and imprisoned. While behind bars, despair consumed him, and in 1994, he took his own life. His violent legacy and mysterious downfall remain embedded in Hells Angels lore. Kadir Padir, born in Turkey on November 26, 1982, Kadir Padir could have built a successful life in Germany. Instead, he chose the path of crime, eventually becoming the leader of the Hells Angels Berlin City chapter. Padir rose to infamy during Germany's violent biker wars, culminating in the Berlin Hells Angels trial of 2010. He faced charges of murder tied to the killing of Tahir Özbek, a man accused of collaborating with rival gang, the Bandidos. Security footage revealed the brutal execution of Özbek by 13 bikers, including Padir. Although Padir didn't pull the trigger himself, the court concluded he played a key role in orchestrating the killing and fostering a culture of brutality and manipulation within his ranks. Today, Padir is serving a life sentence, but even from behind bars, he continues to influence the gang using a mobile phone smuggled into prison. 7. Paulie Eischeid. 2003. Paul Eischeid, a successful stockbroker and part-time Hells Angel, was charged with drug trafficking, kidnapping, and murder. While under house arrest, Eischeid cut off his monitoring bracelet and vanished, becoming one of America's most wanted fugitives. By 2007, the U.S. Marshals had added him to their top 15 most wanted list, intensifying the global manhunt. Court documents later revealed that Eischeid, alongside another Hells Angel, had brutally attacked a woman named Cynthia Garcia at the club's Arizona clubhouse after she criticized the gang's activities. They beat her until she lost consciousness, kidnapped her, and then killed her in a remote desert area. After 17 years on the run, Ice Kid was finally captured in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 2018, thanks to a massive Interpol operation. His arrest was hailed as a major victory for international law enforcement. Saka, Michel Jinx, Genestin. The early 1980s, the Hells Angels were facing internal chaos. Their Laval chapter was plagued by drug abuse and reckless behavior. When rumors spread that they owed money to rival gang leader Frank Dooney Ryan, tensions exploded. A meeting was called at the Lennoxville clubhouse, supposedly to discipline the Laval members. Instead, it became a trap. On that fateful day, over 40 Hells Angels ambushed 5 Laval chapter members, brutally beating and shooting them before disposing of their bodies in the St. Lawrence River. Michel Jinx, Genest, a violent and unpredictable member, played a key role in orchestrating the massacre. In the weeks that followed, Jinx also murdered Claude Roy, a Laval prospect. The ensuing police investigation, aided by informants Yves Trudeau and Jerry Coulombe, revealed the full horror of the massacre, even exposing a jury bribery attempt during the trials. Genest's actions during the Lennoxville massacre solidified his place among the most ruthless Hells Angels ever. 5. Frank Hainbuth, standing 6'5", with a bald head and neatly trimmed beard, Frank Hainbuth rose to become one of the most powerful Hells Angels in Germany as the president of the Hanover chapter. Coming from a middle-class background, Hainbuth built his empire in Hanover's red light district, expanding the club's influence into legitimate businesses. Despite several legal troubles and prison time, he remained untouchable, largely thanks to political connections, including with lawyer Gerd von Fromberg, an associate of former Chancellor Gerhard Schröder. Known as the Peacemaker, Hainbuth often mediated disputes between gangs, including the rival Bandidos MC. But behind his diplomatic image, he faced accusations of ordering murders and running organized crime operations. In 2012, he moved to Mallorca, Spain, where he allegedly led the Hells Angels Spain chapter, overseeing activities like drug trafficking, pimping, extortion, and money laundering. He was arrested in 2013 but later released. Hainbuth's leadership style left a deep mark on the Hells Angels, giving them both criminal power and social acceptance across Europe. David Wolfe Carroll, David MacDonald Carroll, known as Wolfe, was a Canadian outlaw biker who became one of the most feared figures in Hells Angels history. Starting out in the 13th Tribe Motorcycle Club in Halifax, Carroll earned the trust of the Montreal Hells Angels and eventually became president of Atlantic Canada's first chapter. He built a reputation as a hitman and key figure in the Lennoxville massacre, though he was later acquitted. Carroll proudly wore the "Filthy Few" patch, signifying that he had killed for the club. Throughout the 1990s, Carroll was deeply involved in drug trafficking, prostitution, and the Quebec Biker War, often working alongside the Rizzuto crime family. In 2001, just before a major police crackdown, Carroll disappeared, taking nearly $1 million in cash with him. Authorities believe he fled to Mexico, later moving to Brazil, though he's also been reportedly spotted in Australia and the Dominican Republic. Now in his 70s, David Carroll remains an elusive ghost of the Hells Angels underworld. 3. Walter Stadnick, born in Hamilton, Ontario on August 3, 1952, Walter Stadnick didn't look like a criminal mastermind. His face bore scars from a motorcycle accident, and his demeanor was quiet and intelligent. But beneath that calm exterior was one of Canada's most powerful crime figures. In 1978, Stadnick traveled to Montreal to discuss a patchover, turning his club, the Wild Ones, into an official Hells Angels chapter. But that trip turned deadly when members of the rival Outlaws MC stormed a bar in what became known as the La Tourbillon Massacre. Stadnick barely survived by hiding under a table. He went on to become the national president of the Hells Angels, expanding their empire across Canada. Under his leadership, the club evolved into a nationwide criminal organization, triggering the first Canadian Biker War and leaving a trail of violence and fear. Even rivals within his own organization plotted against him, notably Scott Steinert, who was later found dead in the St. Lawrence River with a crushed skull. A near-fatal traffic accident in 1984 left Stadnik badly burned, but he recovered and continued to lead. Eventually, he was jailed on gangsterism charges, but his impact on Canada's criminal landscape was already cemented. 2. Yves Apache. Trudeau Yves Apache Trudeau, also known as the Mad Bumper, was one of the most dangerous serial killers in Canadian history, and a Hell's Angel. Born in 1946, Trudeau started out as an industrial worker before founding the Popeyes Motorcycle Club, which soon became one of Canada's largest biker gangs with ties to the Montreal Mafia. In 1977, the Popeyes officially became the first Hells Angels chapter in Canada, but Trudeau quickly descended into darkness. His first murder occurred when he shot a man who stole a gang motorcycle, a killing committed in front of his peers. Over the years, he became a contract killer for both the Mafia and the Angels, committing 43 murders throughout the 1970s and 80s. After surviving the Lennoxville massacre by pure chance, he was in rehab during the killings. Trudeau turned informant. His confessions helped convict 43 other Hells Angels members, earning him a reduced sentence. Released in 1994 under a new identity, he tried to start over but soon fell back into trouble. In 2004, he was rearrested for sexually abusing a 13-year-old boy and sentenced again. Diagnosed with cancer, he was released for palliative care and died in 2008. With 43 confirmed kills, Yves Trudeau remains one of Canada's most prolific murderers, and a dark legend in Hells Angels history. Maurice "Mom" Boucher. If the Hells Angels had a king, it was Maurice "Mom" Boucher, the embodiment of everything violent, charismatic, and dangerous about the club. Born on June 21, 1953, Boucher became the president of the Quebec Nomads chapter, leading the Angels through the brutal Quebec biker war against the rock machine MC in the 1990s. A natural leader and tactician, Boucher used puppet clubs like the Rockers to carry out assassinations and drug operations while keeping his own hands clean. His mix of intelligence, ruthlessness, and fearlessness made him nearly untouchable. Boucher's connections extended to the Montreal Mafia, working closely with Reynald Desjardins and the Rizzuto family on drug smuggling operations. His influence was so great that even after being acquitted in one high-profile trial, Hells Angels members carried him out of court on their shoulders. He became a folk hero to some, despite being one of Canada's most dangerous criminals. But in 2002, Boucher's reign finally ended when he was convicted for ordering the murders of 2 prison guards, part of a plan to destabilize the justice system. He was sentenced to 3 life terms in Canada's Supermax prison. Even in isolation, Boucher survived assassination attempts, but cancer eventually claimed his life in July 2022 at the Archambault Institution. Maurice "Mom" Boucher's legacy is one of terror, manipulation, and power. A man who turned the Hells Angels into a criminal empire and left a mark that will never fade.